Hey guys, my name is Witchy Cupcake. How are you doing today? So, today's stream says talking about my travels, and then let's find Princess Zelda. So that's what we're gonna do. First, I'm gonna tell you guys about where I'm from and all that, because it was kind of mentioned the other day, but I knew it was way too long to write through a message, so I'd rather just tell you guys in person. Basically, I have lived in Chile, Argentina, Brazil, and the USA due to my parents pursuing education and career opportunities, and therefore I speak Spanish, Portuguese, and English. That's the really summarized version, but I'll kind of tell you guys a little bit more about how that worked and how long I spent in each place. So let me go and pull up a little map for you guys here. Just in case, because I know that not everyone knows where everything is. Same as me, like there are so many countries that I don't know where they are, or maybe I think they're somewhere and they're not. But let's start this story. So I was born, can you see the little mouse here? Yep. In this country here called Chile, which is a long and narrow country in South America. My family lived all over the country, but I was born more toward the south, and I also lived in the central region. And yeah, that's where my whole family is from. Parents, all relatives are from there, right? If you go back up, like ancestry-wise, of course, some generations back were from other places, but this is basically where my whole family is from. Now, there is a really big misconception that I get a lot when I tell people that I'm from Chile. And everyone basically says, but you're white. Yes, actually, there are a lot of Caucasian people in South America, especially in Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay. Almost all of South America was colonized by the Spanish, except for Brazil, which was colonized by the Portuguese. That's mainly where Caucasian people in those countries come from, but then there were lots of waves of immigrants. And in fact, I took a little screenshot of an article that I was reading the other day just to give you guys a little bit more of an accurate idea of like where people come from. So let me find it here real quick. It says, Chile's various waves of non-Spanish immigrants include Italians, Irish, French, Greeks, Germans, English, Scots, Croats, and Poles. I know I have some ancestry of the following countries. I know I have Spanish, Scottish, Irish, and help me out, Muffin Wizard, is it Swiss? I always get that confused. As well as Italian, and yes, Swiss, thank you. And yeah, and I probably have some native as well from the people that were the natives of Chile before it turned into Chile, you know? But I still haven't found those yet in my family ancestry. But it's pretty likely, since Chile is a country that got very mixed, like culturally, ethnically, everything. It was just a big mix of people. So that is where we're at. And it says here in these this kind of summary thing that I found on Wikipedia and stuff, as well as I studied this in my Spanish class at university, that I'd say 50%, from like 50 to 65% of Chileans identify as Caucasians, and then there's mix of Caucasian and native, and then there's very few nowadays purely native people. Basically, that is kind of the mix of people we have. And anyway, so I was born there, and I lived there, I'd say, until I was about 4 years old, 4 or 5 approximately. Then my parents and our family, we moved to the United States. So up here, and we lived in the state of Utah and in the state of Arkansas. And that was for about, I'd say, a total of 3 years. So I started kindergarten school in the US, and that's, I guess, why my English is pretty good. Sometimes people pick up on my accent, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't. It just really depends. Usually when you're a little bit nervous, like now, streaming, it comes out a little bit more. When I'm more relaxed and natural, it usually doesn't come up as much. So that's kind of how it goes. I learned how to read and write in English, but when I came to the US, I didn't know any English. I did speak Spanish, which actually, by the way, is technically not Spanish. In countries in South America, at least the ones that I know, because of course I don't have the knowledge about all of the countries, it's a pretty big place, we actually speak Castellano, which I guess translated would be Castilian. We never say we speak Spanish, we only say that people from Spain speak Spanish. I guess you could compare it to like English from the United States and English from the UK. It's technically the same language, but there are a lot of words and phrases that are pretty different, right? When we go to class and we have like language class in Chile, we call it Castellano. When I was about 8 years old, my family moved yet again. Let me go here in the little map, and we went to Argentina, right here. I lived there for about 2 years, so from about 8-ish to 10-ish, right? And there, even though I already spoke Spanish, they, of course, speak very differently, different accents, different dialects, everything. So it was, again, almost like learning something completely new. Then we went back to Chile, right here again. I lived there from the ages of about 10 to 16. So I started my teenage years there. And, within Chile, we did move from different regions. Over there are no states. Instead of states, it's called regions. And in Argentina, they're called provinces. So anyways, I never stayed in one specific place. We moved around a lot, basically. For me, staying there from 10 to 16 approximately, that was a pretty long time for me, 6 years in a row in one place. One country. So I kind of had gotten used to living there and stuff, but I was still not an adult, so I was still under 18. And then my family moved again to Brazil. So here we go. And we lived in the state of Sao Paulo, which is basically New York. Well, it's kind of equivalent to that. The United States and Brazil is actually very similar in the sense that they're both very large countries geographically, and they have a similar population. They have similar population numbers, and they have a big metropolis and stuff like that. So that is actually where I lived the longest. I lived there for a total of 10 years. Oh, and then of course when we moved to Brazil, I was 16 and I had to learn a whole other language, which is Portuguese. And technically, Portuguese and Spanish are similar-ish, but also they're not. So, for example, when I was at school and the teachers were speaking and, they speak correctly and kind of slowly, and I had a textbook to kind of see what they were saying at the same time, I understood quite a bit, right? But if it was just friends talking to me outside of the classroom, I could not understand a single word. I'd say it took me 6 months to learn some basic Portuguese to be able to communicate, with lots of grammatical errors and things like that. And I'd say it took me about 2 years to be fluent. I'd say Portuguese is the language that I speak the best or the most. I don't practice it too much nowadays, but because I stayed there for 10 years consecutive, I kind of know that better than English and than Spanish. I finally, became an adult, but my parents then moved out of Brazil, and I stayed there. I lived there alone for a long time. And then, finally, I came back to the US, in the state of Utah. That's where I'm at. And I've been living here for about 6 years. So, to recap, born in Chile, moved to the US to Utah, moved to Arkansas, went to Argentina, went back to Chile, moved to Brazil, came back to the USA. So that's kind of how that went. In total, so I would say I've been in Chile for 10 years because it was 4 from when I was born and then plus 6. So it's about 10. And then in Brazil, 10 consecutive years. In Argentina, about 2 years. And in the US now it's going to be 8 or 9 years. So I'm actually about to equal the quantity of US, Brazil, and Chile. Yes, that is a lot. Actually, I have a little list here because I forget of how many places I've lived. Let me open it up for you guys real quick. I've lived in 16 houses. Well, technically, now that I moved again like a week or 2 ago, 17 houses or apartments, you know. I've attended, I think, 8 schools, and I've lived in 4 countries. So that's kind of the summary for you. You know, a lot of people might think, oh, like, your family must be rich or something. Well, they're really not. Obviously, they were like middle class, I guess. Not too poor, although we have had several times where we've struggled a lot. And sometimes the reason why we've moved is because of that struggle. So it's not very like glamorous and stuff, you know? Whenever people ask me like, oh, well, have you seen this and have you visited that? Like really famous sites and stuff like that. It's usually a no, because I would just live where I lived. I didn't really like travel around those countries to get to know them. Aside from that, I have once gone on vacation to Uruguay, and that was purely vacation, so that was nice. I have also gone to Washington State and Florida here in the US, also for, I guess, short vacations. And yeah, those are the places that I know. So I'd like to go to other places in the future. I think it would be cool. I mean, obviously, going around the world would be a lot of fun, right? Getting to know lots of cultures and stuff like that. Which language was the hardest for you to learn? So when I learned English, I was like 4 or 5 years old. Therefore, I don't remember learning it. I just learned it. And I've done a lot of like presentations and stuff about kind of languages because it's something that interests me. And technically, if you learn a language before the age of 7, you have a lot more ease to learn it because your brain is still forming and stuff when you're a child. I guess that was the easiest. Therefore, the hardest for me was Portuguese because I was already almost an adult. That being said, because I already knew 2 languages before Portuguese, it does make it easier because you're kind of already used to the learning process, I guess. Usually someone who only knows their own native language would have a harder time learning their second language, if that makes sense, rather than someone who already has 2 languages learning a third or a fourth or something. So I have heard that, and I think that is kind of what happened there. But yeah, I definitely like language learning. I even took some Japanese and German classes, but I didn't get very far. I just know very, very basic stuff, like a little bit of vocabulary here and there. And growing up, I was very interested in anime, so that is one of the reasons why I was interested in learning Japanese, but I never continued the course. So I wouldn't even say I have like basic Japanese. I can just pick out some words and say a couple sentences, things like that. And then German, yeah, same thing. I like learned to count and stuff, but I wouldn't say I know those. But might be interesting in the future to learn a little bit more. Let me know if you guys know other languages or if you're interested in learning any, because that would be cool to know. I think, the more languages you can learn, the better. You can communicate with more people, so that's neat. I thought I would maybe one day do like an Ask Me Anything for each different country, but if right now you guys have any questions or any kind of assumptions of the countries that I've mentioned, you can ask away and I'll be happy to answer. I know that, there's lots of stereotypes, not necessarily in a negative way, but lots of like preconceived notions that we have about these places, and usually they've surprised me, and it's been like really different than what I thought. So if you have any questions, let me know. It's been really, really fun having you all here, and thanks so much for participating in chat and supporting me. Even just opening the stream up is really helpful. So yeah, I'm really glad you guys stopped by. All right, have a great one. Bye. Thank you.